Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Bate Escape podcast. I am so excited to bring you this episode. You're going to know why real soon. I have two amazing guests, and I'm so proud and honored to have them both in my presence here tonight. I do have the amazing Prettypiggy19 and also DamianXXXDragon. Welcome, boys.
Hey,
Hey,
How's it going?
great, thank you.
good.
Good. So I did like tweet about this on Twitter, and I was just like, oh, I'm recording a really special episode, and I put like a piggy emoji plus a dragon emoji plus the white heart emoji. And I was
Oh,
wondering if people would catch on to that, but I don't know, I feel like it's too obscure.
the real ones will know.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. All right, well, first before we get started, I want everyone to know where y'all can follow you. So go ahead and shout out all your socials and all the cool stuff that you're doing.
So this is Damian Dragon. My website is DamianXXDragon.com, and my Instagram is also DamianXXDragon. And then if you want to find me on my Just for Fans or my OnlyFans, it's DamianXXXDragon.
Oh,
Cute. And this is Pretty Piggy. On Twitter, it's at Prettypiggy19. On Instagram, it's Prettypiggy_19. And on OnlyFans, it's either one of the two. It's either Prettypiggy19 or Prettypiggy_19.
super cute.
That's it.
I love it. And then you all know how to find me on Beastlybator. You can find me all over social, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Bait World. You're on Bait World too, right, Pretty Piggy? Well,
Yes.
Damien, you do stuff with Bait World too.
I do. I just did a video for their beta training series, and I am on Date World, and I'm not sure what my name is. It's either Damian Dragon or Damian XXX Dragon.
That's perfect. Of course, I'm gonna find that and stock that as well. Thank you for that.
Amazing. I love it.
But I love the beta training series. Someone told me that I should ask to do it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I'm like,
You should.
I don't know.
Yeah, go for it. We love
We'll
it.
see. Yeah, I know. All right. Well, the reason why I wanted both of you on here because I thought you were both, first of all, extremely sexy. Second of all, extremely smart. And this is kind of like a special Valentine's Day themed podcast. So really the focus is about love and other sexy things. But yeah, everything's good. But I want to know, yeah, heart. Jamie just threw up a heart. You're both making me really nervous. I have to like
Oh,
I have to chill out.
Cute.
Cool. Well, let me know what's going on in 2021. How's that been for you? How's the new year starting so far?
My new year has started amazingly. I had a very slow start to the new year, but it's gotten very busy this month, which has been really great. After wondering what was happening with work and everything in those slow times between Thanksgiving and Christmas. But I did a retreat with a somatic sex educator, a 3-day retreat, which was absolutely amazing and restorative. And then I just found out actually today, a couple of hours ago, that I got accepted for my application for the BIPOC scholarship at the Institute for Somatic Sex Education up in Victoria, BC.
oh, that's
Wow.
awesome.
That sounds so amazing.
Yeah, it's a good start to the year. So
It sounds like a really powerful journey.
it feels very validating to know that the merits of my sex work so far have gotten me into something that I can continue with my learning process.
Mm,
I agree.
sweet.
Yeah. What about you, Pretty?
Yeah, I kind of the opposite for me. The leading up to the new year was like super busy with my work. I work at a restaurant, and then right after the new year, it dropped off pretty dramatically. So I've just had a lot of free time, which has been pretty nice. I've definitely been enjoying the free time, but yeah, just a lot of chilling and spending time with my dog who's sitting here right next to me.
We love Bella.
Yeah, she's so sweet.
I
She's so
haven't seen
sweet.
Bella before. Can I see Bella?
Yeah, I'm not
She's
gonna
a great
move her,
dog,
but
y'all. Oh, she's
hi, Bella.
amazing.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
she's chilly. It's cold here in our apartment. I don't know why they need to fix the heat, but anyway.
feel like I need to get a dog very soon.
Same.
That's like my yeah, that's like my goal in life. Like I feel like everyone's like, "What are you gonna do in the next couple of years?" I'm like, "I'm moving to Canada and I'm getting a dog, and
Oh.
just a new apartment, and everyone can leave me the fuck alone." I just want to chill out and do my thing. Well, that's cool. That's really exciting stuff, and I think it's both fitting for both of you to do all these really great things. So I'm really hoping that the rest of the year goes um, as well. Also,
How's the beginning of
um,
your year going?
it's going well. It's going a lot better. I felt that the fall winter season last year was kind of rough. So much better place now. Thank you for asking. One of the cool things that I really look forward to was starting my Somatica sex coach training again.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's exciting. I just took another module this last weekend and I'm learning so much. And I feel like it's been such a validating experience for me because I enjoy talking about sex and I enjoy helping others. So it's like a perfect combination for both of that.
Hmm.
Definitely it is.
And also to just show it off, you know, dick pics here and there, it doesn't
Hot.
hurt, whatever. Yeah, it's sexy.
Mm.
Cool. So Valentine's Day is coming up. What do you all feel about Valentine's Day? I'm curious, so curious to know. I always get conflicting answers.
Well, this year there is no Valentine's Day for me to celebrate. I was in two back-to-back relationships spanning 17 years.
Holy
And
shit.
I know it's a long period of my life. And this is my first entering my fourth year of being single. And it's taken me almost these 4 years to figure out how to be single and live on my life and be independent without somebody else being around me. So I really enjoyed my last Valentine's Day, just hanging out on my own and being on my own.
Yeah, that's hot.
Nice. Yeah. Um, Again, for me, it's kind of opposite. I just got out of like a 2-year relationship, and the past 2 years I did have somebody to spend Valentine's Day with, which was really nice. I'm used to being alone, and I'll be alone this Valentine's Day, which is fine. I like seeing other people being in love on Valentine's Day and like spending time with each other. And for where I work at the restaurant, it's always very busy. So I will be at work, and that's fine by me. I'll just be doing the thing and like reaching out to all my little lovers. So
Oh,
yeah.
adorable.
That's hot. I love Valentine. Well, no, I didn't always love it. I feel like I was always conflicted when I was younger because I just didn't understand that I could choose the impact that it has on my life. Like I feel like
Mm.
in like you're always kind of dictated as like, oh, it's Valentine's Day, it's a day for lovers and go out and do this thing. But I'm just like, that doesn't apply to me. So I'm always like trying to like shift it to it's like, oh, like I can be my own lover. Well, I mean that's been like my last kind of journey for the past couple of years.
Hell yeah.
And I try to like not think of it as like a negative anymore. So I'm just like, you can just make it be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be like this over dramatized or like loathing thing, right? Am I alone in that?
No, that's a beautiful message. And I think that's a really awesome thing to practice. And like,
Yeah,
that's totally a day, like go to town with yourself and like buy yourself
all,
chocolates and flowers and have sex and whatever. Like
all the
take
time.
yourself to the movies. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, like
It's fun.
24/7, like all day, every day.
Oh yeah.
What better else thing to do than treat yourself?
Hmm.
It's kind of like I feel like if more people talked about it, it would normalize the idea, right? Like I just feel like, and also too, that's why I want like I was so happy that both of you agreed to do this because I feel like you all have such an impact on your audience. Because we get like these influx of like these young people coming to us because you guys are cool. I feel like people would like
Thanks.
respond to your messaging. It's pretty impactful. But we've talked about this before, Piggy. I think like the impact that you have, and if you're like consciously aware of that every time, like on your social. I feel like Damien, you do a little bit of that because I feel like your social's so cool. Like you definitely like put out like art stuff and other
Yeah,
things?
everything that I put out is all of interest to me.
Hmm.
All of the art stuff, definitely, it's a huge part of my life. I love being surrounded by artists and figuring out how their minds work and what makes them create and things like that. And I love anything really aesthetic, and I'm all about the promotion of making sure that Asian men feel beautiful uh, and let's see, in a mainstream society where we haven't always felt beautiful before because we don't fit mainstream beauty ideas. So I love promoting that, and I love showing that through the work that I do. It may be kind of unconventional in its methods,
Hmm.
but I get messages that it's working. So I'm really happy about that.
I love your aesthetic. I feel like you're such a muse. Like you're always like posting these like beautiful drawings that these artists have like done of you, and I'm just like, holy shit. But that's just your vibe. Like even looking at you now, like I don't know. Like I when I was younger, I aspired to be like you for sure. I mean, I'm trying to like
Same.
get there in my life now. But that's so great that you say that. It's like particularly about Asian men because like I'll be the first to admit, like I that was something that I chose to gain information on. Like I grew up in a community of like primarily Latino, Mexican American, and like, I just didn't see Asian beauty around me because that's just not something that we were like given. It's a choice that I consciously made. Um, so I'm really proud of that. And but also to like you're like gorgeous, so it's easy to do
Really,
that. What you were gonna say something, Vicky? Or
Oh, I mean, yeah, Damien, you're very gorgeous. And I think everything that y'all are saying, like, that is an awesome way to use social media. And yeah, also, I mean, I think growing up, I haven't seen many examples of like our mainstream society celebrating like Asian men being beautiful and sexy and all of that. But I've had conversations like I had a friend in Savannah that used to work with me. She's a Japanese American woman, and we would like always get together after, well, not always, but like we would get together after work a lot of times and like chat about all kinds of stuff. And frequently we would talk about like how sexy Asian men are. And she's like, yeah, it's really frustrating that like our society doesn't talk about that very much. Like she's like, of course we always see white men being celebrated as like sexy and masculine, and even black men and Latino men, but she was like, I feel like Asian men are underrepresented in that way. And that is the truth. um yeah, that's, I guess, all I have to say about that.
I think
I find, yeah, go ahead.
I think things are changing slowly as you see more Asians entering media in a positive role and not
Mm.
Totally.
playing roles stereotypically assigned to people who are Asian. You know,
Yeah, for
definitely.
sure. I also to think too, it's like surround yourself with people of that culture. Like I have a really great friend who's Korean American. And she's always like showing me like hot Asian guys. I'm like, fuck yeah, that's hot. And it was through her that I was able to like gain a bigger interest in Asian culture. 'Cause I was like we were always constantly together. And I think that's a trick. Like I remember a couple of times like being with a bait bro and like watching porn and kind of like surfing the web and kind of like find something that's gonna both turn us on. Um, and like landing on something and then this person being like, oh, I'm not attracted to that, that's not gonna turn me on. And you're just like, well, let's talk about that. Like I'm always the first person to be like, oh, like why? Like there's a sexy black guy or like that Asian dude's like really hot. Like I don't understand why this doesn't. And so then that conversation happens, but it's always like it starts with just being aware, right? And like not being afraid to like ask or be inquisitive as to why you're not attracted to certain races,
Mm-hmm.
which goes to like a deep hole of like all this shit when all you really want to do is just jack off. I mean, it's important to like offer this information lovingly,
Of course.
which is something that I'm trying to learn in sex coaching. But I really wanted to talk about like de-shaming sex, because I feel like both of you have such a like a great social media presence. Like I feel like you're very proud of your sex, and I want to really talk about a little bit about that journey. How was that for you, just being able to de-shame your sex acts? And first of all, can I just say, is it safe to say you're both sex workers? Is that fair? Or
That is fair with me, definitely. I do a lot of other things, but my work is sexually based. So I call myself a sex worker.
okay,
And for me, I'm really like right now only kind of like a social media sex worker and like OnlyFans, but even currently I haven't been updating it that much.
yeah,
Whereas like my day-to-day work is in a restaurant. That's where I spend like at least 40 hours a
yeah,
day. And I have done other forms of like full service sex work, but it's not something I'm currently doing.
got it. That's cool. Um, yeah, so like if we can talk about a little bit about what that process was for you, like how did you even get the courage to be like, oh, I enjoy sex and I want to show that off to people?
Wow, that was a really long journey, definitely. I started filming. I did my first films in like 2008 and 2009.
Oh wow.
And at that point in time, I had a really big problem sort of balancing the porn career side of myself and the reality side of myself.
Yes.
You know, it and it wasn't until probably 3 years ago that I just kind of merged everything into one. There was
Mm,
like a huge period where I was unsure who to tell that I was working, unsure who to tell I was working in porn, and who not to tell. I was unsure whether I should tell friends, or maybe their families would not want to meet me, or they wouldn't want to introduce me to friends, all of those sort
Mm,
of things during that whole period of time. I had one partner who was very supportive of me working in the industry. My second partner, I stopped working for a period of time. um, and I think that compromise could be why we're not together anymore, because it
mm,
just felt like I was trying to stop something that was very, very natural to me. But over these last like 3.5, 4 years, I've just come to the point with anything I do within the sex work that I do, that I'm really upfront and open and honest with people about it right from the very beginning, so they don't have that question in their head down the line like, oh, you never told me, or oh no, what's he going to tell my friends, or what happens if he meets my family. I want to cut that out all the way out right away. So it's just like, if you're not ready for that, then you can just stay by the side there. And
yeah.
the people who are really comfortable with it and they don't give a shit about anybody knowing what I do, those are the people that I want surrounding
Yeah. That's totally
totally.
fair.
me. Mhm.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, my journey, like getting into sex work, but also more than that, just like being open about being a slut and like just sharing my body online and like sharing it with people in general. Um, for me, like my whole adult life so far up until about a year ago, like from the end of high school, I've been really big about being a drag queen. And I really never in all of that time, I mean, I felt sexy in a sense, but I never felt like my peers or people online that I would interact with, because I was like primarily promoting being a drag queen. I didn't have a sense that people were interested in me sexually.
Hmm.
And a couple of years ago, I started dating this man who was a sex worker, and he was just super encouraging, made me feel very sexy, and I would ask him a lot of questions about like what what got him into it, and like how did he start feeling confident with all these different things. And eventually, I felt compelled to like make a Twitter to like be sexy and have this separate social media presence where I could like feel comfortable in my own skin and like get off with all these different people. And that was very integral to me feeling comfortable in my sexuality and in my own skin. And that really was like only since last December. So like it's I'm still kind of in the beginning phases of like I don't know about beginning phases, but yeah, it's only really been a year. But like within that time, I felt very encouraged by all of the different followers that I've had and inspired by all of these different men that I see being sexy in various different um, ways, like whether they're sex workers or if they're just sharing online because they just want to and it's fun for them. Um,
Mhm.
and then yeah, like last April is when I decided to make an OnlyFans because I was like, well, I've got some content on my phone that I haven't shared on Twitter, and let's see like what I can do on there. And I also like at the time when I was doing that, I wasn't working. Like the restaurant had to close down for some months. And so like I just wanted to generate some more income. And yeah, that's uh that's how it's been for me so far.
The thought. Well, both of your duties are so inspiring. Um, it's funny because I get asked that a lot. They're just like, oh, why did you start showing off, or why did you start making content? And for me, it really came from a place of feeling really alone in my sex. Like I was just like, oh, like I feel different. And it was really like the beginning to like my solo sexuality where I was just like, I really enjoy masturbation and I love it a lot. And I'm trying to find people, other men who feel the same way I do. And I was in New York at the time, and I'd met someone that was like a huge baiter, and he introduced me to Bait World. And it wasn't until I got back to LA from New York that I was just like, okay, like this feels good to me. And it's funny, I always talk about the power of masturbation, and masturbation has really helped to shame a lot of shit in my sex life. It's allowed me to show off. It's allowed me to love my body more. It's allowed me to be more confident with myself in my sexual expression, in my sexual partners. And I don't think a lot of people talk a lot about like the act of deshaming your sex. I mean, if I feel because if I feel like if you have a lot of shame about your sex, you're either not going to expose yourself or it's not going to be authentic. And I get authenticity from both of you for sure, which is why I asked the question because I was super curious.
Yeah, I'll say for me, it's taken a lot of work, and that's been something integral to like my experience on Twitter is tuning into like what is my authentic self with sex, because I've shared sex with men in the past, like since high school and like until now, where it didn't feel so authentic. And just because I was craving some sort of sexual connection with somebody, like I would kind of settle into, and I think we've talked about this before, Beastly, like I would have sex that ended up being unsatisfactory, and I never necessarily wanted to meet with these people again. But you know, like I valued it for what it was, but it didn't feel authentic because I had that shame that I wasn't sharing like what felt sexy to me and like what I really wanted to do. So it's having Twitter has made me feel like, oh yeah, like there's people that are into what I'm into, and this is how I can share it. And especially during a pandemic, that's really awesome, because if you know, if you don't want to be meeting up with people and not possibly like get exposed to COVID or spread that kind of exposure, then online is a great avenue to go for like sharing sex.
Definitely. I love it. I feel like um it was such a I was such a curious part because it happened not too recently. I was being asked on Twitter, or I saw someone on Twitter respond to some message that I or some tweet that I put up, but he was talking about how much shame he had. He still had so much shame and guilt about his masturbatory practice, like him just being a masturbator. Um, and I was like, it takes practice. First of all, it takes compassion, right? You have to be kind to yourself and understand that it's a process. It's like And I don't think a lot of people talk about um, how painful of a process it can be, because I feel like, and I'll speak for myself, like growing up in a heteronormative society, like anything that we ever learned was heteronormative, right? Like all the books we read, all the movies we watched, like, and then on top of that, like, okay, I'm a gay man. On top of that, I'm like a solosexual. So like nothing ever really resonated with me. And I think it's, no one ever talks about the process can be painful because you're kind of shedding like all these idealistic narratives that have been thrown at you, right? Like you don't always have to have like the perfect family. You don't have to have like this perfect home or like whatever that idealized romantic thing is. Um, and to me, it's really important for me to share that aspect of my life because it's been hard. Like it's been a lot of shadow work and um, again, like dealing with so much shame around my sex. It can be hard on a lot of people.
Yeah, it's kind of like jumping off a cliff or something. Like you don't know what could be there because we're all in a way just kind of operating off of what we've been taught and what we've been force fed through society. And it
Mhm.
definitely, like, along with the pain, it's a lot of unknown.
Yeah.
And pioneering, but for that reason, I think pioneering your own, like, um figuring out like what turns you on, and like that it's so rewarding because that was like you did that. um
Yes, totally. Yes. Although the journey can be painful, the rewards are great.
Ugh.
That's what I always want to tell people. Like once you get it, like once you go through it, and it might be never ending, but I feel like it's so much sweeter because like you're real. Like you're real to yourself, you're real to everyone else, and you're just having better sex. Just keep it
Mhm.
100, and that's the goal. And you're gonna have some amazing cool stuff to do.
Yeah.
Of course, being like in that solo sexual lifestyle that you're in, like if you can stand in front of the mirror and talk about all the things you love about yourself, and if you can watch yourself while you're jerking off and just like watch your expressions and seeing how your body reacts, see what turns you on. And then if you can become vocal, if you want to bring that other person into your life, you know everything that turns you on. So you can actually talk them through getting to know your body. It just makes things so much like deeper and more connected when it comes to the reality of sex with another person, if that's the route that you want to be in.
Yep, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think for me, it was such like a painful process because, again, it was feelings of like not thinking that you're sexy enough. But that's like this weird narrative that people tell you. When you start to really focus on what makes you happy and like what brings you joy, you can really start to explore that in aspects of yourself. But it all really begins with self, which hence why I feel like masturbation is so powerful, right? Because essentially what you're doing is you're making love to yourself and then you're knowing your body in a way that can make you feel super amazing, and then you share that information with your lovers, and that builds confidence,
Of
and
course.
then you keep doing it, which you practice, and it builds more confidence.
Yeah, and
But
then you share that with like all these other people, and then the whole
exactly.
the whole world becomes a better place.
And the whole world becomes a more sex positive place, which is one of the things I always tell like my bros. Like I have a lot of young men follow me, which I never thought I would, like 20, 19, 21. And they're just like, how do you do it? Like, how do you do this? I'm just like, practice. Like you just, it's a practice. It's for me, it's meditation. I do it every day. It's like working out. You take care of your health, you take care of your sexual health. If you put so much effort onto all these other positive things, sex should definitely be one of them, right?
Hell yeah.
Of course.
Totally. So one of the things that I really learned about myself, or not really learned, but I'm starting to learn, is this thing called boundaries, which I feel is so important in the work that we all do, because I feel like um, as much as I try to be educational and informative, I find people like constantly like pushing the boundaries of what I do, and I have to like have to figure out a way to like navigate that again lovingly, right? Because we don't want to like scare people off. We want to have them be a part of this collective. What has been y'all experiences with boundaries in the context of being like sex workers? Everyone's thinking.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting as a sex worker because people think that sex is all you're about. So no matter what situation you're in, they think that you're down for sex.
Yeah.
You know, it's very interesting.
Speak on it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a really tough thing, especially when you're single and then you want to think of like dating again, like has started to pop into my head after 3 or 4 years. And it's just like, I don't want, to me, connection is the whole thing that starts something in me. There has to be like that spark of the mind. So when there's a connection and that other person reciprocates just thinking that it's going to become something completely sexual, it's kind of hard because I don't flip that, the switch doesn't flip that way for me. It's a very tough thing when people think that all you are is sex. You know, I guess it's the image that I have out there too. But it's interesting when people meet me outside of what they see as my porn persona or my online persona, and they're just like, there's a big juxtaposition between like that image that you present and who you really are. And I guess people don't see that there's more to a person than just their image.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like I'm conflicted. Not conflicted, but it just doesn't make sense to me that the two things can't be mutually exclusive. Like, or did I say that right? Like you can be so many other things and still be a sexual being.
Yes.
Right? Like why do the things have to be separated from one another? Like one of the things, one of the most powerful things that I've learned in somatica coaching is like my dick doesn't stay home when I leave. Like my dick is with me all the time. So why can't I be sexual all the time? I may not be like fucking in a park somewhere. I mean, which you can do. I get off on that. That's great. But the idea that we're just like banging everything that we see in our everyday life is just so not real. But it's just a sexual energy that you own, that you take everywhere with you, and you can be a sexual person doing your 9 to 5 job or at the gym or going to dinner. Like it doesn't have to like go away when you're not doing your work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What's your experience, Piggy?
Yeah. In my experience, like, well, I want to talk about like if somebody is expecting sex from you, and if you're so like if I'm putting out an image as this sexual person, if somebody has found my page and they want to have sex with me and we meet up to have sex, or when we're talking about what we want to do with each other, I've found that there will be people who are like, I want to do this specific thing with you. Like, I expect this from you. And then I'll have to be like, oh, okay, I can't guarantee that that will happen. Like, I remember one time I was going to have sex with this guy and he's like, I want you to ride me and come just for me fucking you. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can do that. Like, we'll see where it goes. But it was just like, we agreed to meet up and we did have sex, but it like that one specific fantasy that he had, he was like very adamant that like that is what he wanted from this sex that we were having together. And to me it was like I expressed to him like in many different ways, like, yeah, I hear you on that, like that sounds fun. I can't guarantee that like I can give that to you, but why don't we see what happens, you know? And I think that's one very specific like instance of a boundary
Yeah.
just with that type of a transactional experience. But yeah, definitely in other ways, like on Twitter, I mean, or, you know, just getting like unsolicited dick pics. And a lot of times it's like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to respond to that. Like,
Yeah.
at least like
Relatable.
say hello, you know?
Yep.
And yeah, there's a lot of ways like when, you know, in a lot of respects, like 90% of what I'm putting on Twitter is like naked pictures of myself or something sexual. And like, that's what I'm putting out there. That's how I want to connect with people on this social media platform. And in a sense, yes, that's how I want people to connect with me. But kind of like with what you were saying, Damien, is that for me, it doesn't work unless there's some sort of a connection in the first place. Like if I post a picture with my dick and that compels you to want to say like, oh wow, you have a really nice dick, like that's great and I love that. But it's not the same. Like it's something that like pisses me off a little bit is some people will hit me up like, oh, you need to come to this place. And that's another example of a message that I might not respond to because it's like, oh, like you're not even saying hello. Like we're not, there's no us getting to meet each other. It's just like you expect that I want to have sex with you because you tell me to come someplace. That to me like doesn't really line up. Um, and I don't really know if that's really on the same page of boundaries, but it is something
Yeah,
where,
it totally is a boundary because it's
right?
triggering something in you that you're just like, wait, this doesn't feel right to me. And I think boundaries can be so subtle. And I think oftentimes people don't think they have boundaries because they're not catching it. They're just like, oh, this doesn't feel right, but whatever, I'll just do it because it sounds like a good time. But
Yeah.
that doesn't feel right part, that's the boundary that's being touched. And so people just need to
Yes.
be more conscious of like, oh, like it could be so small, that can make a world of difference.
And flexible too. And I'm so glad that you brought that up because in my experiences with boundaries, like sexually with other people or in relationships, I I in previous years I've also thought that I like not that I didn't have any boundaries, but that I had very few. And
Mhm.
then like this same relationship that I've talked about a couple of times, like being in this relationship with this man who was a sex worker, he was very encouraging about my boundaries or like if I ever expressed discomfort while we were having sex or or talking about sex, like we would talk about different boundaries that we have or things that we're interested or whatever, and just breaking it down to that very real like conversational um just like, oh yeah, like what do you think about this? Oh, that's not something I'm into. Like that's like a hard line for me. Or maybe I could get into that. Like maybe check in with me like while you're fucking me, like see how I feel then, like ask me then. Or um, you know, like there was a time where he was fucking me and after I don't know, 15 minutes or something, I'm like, I just can't really take this anymore. And he's like, cool, that's fine. I had a great time. Let's do something else. And he made me feel very comfortable in expressing like how I was feeling and like and what kind of boundaries I was having in that moment. Or yeah.
Yeah.
And that was awesome and transformative in a way where being in that type of like a partnered or you know that type of a where I felt secure to share with him like what I was feeling, that
Mhm.
helped me to recognize what was a boundary for myself in that moment and going forward.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
It's almost like that green, yellow, red light system when you're in a BDSM relationship. You know, you want to
Yes.
keep yourself at that sort of like yellow questioning, you know, is this good? Is this not? Push the boundaries. It may turn green or it may just come to a hard stop of a red, you know? So,
Yeah. It's so, yeah, that's so important to talk about because I feel like oftentimes too, like there's that message just doesn't get across because we're so saturated with like these gifs and these videos of just people going at it, right? But like no one really talks about, well, fuck, that there has to have been a conversation that led up to that sex. What was that? How did they navigate those things? You know, a person might go into a scene, not wanting to do a certain act, but yet if they're not listening to their boundaries and they're not in tune with what's being triggered, they're going to do something that they don't want, they're not comfortable doing. That's why I'm always, it's the one thing that I'm trying to teach, like my bait bros to like have that conversation with one another. Like just because you're automatically connecting or hooking up doesn't mean that you're both aligned in the same thing. Dates are completely different for so many different people. So it's really important to share that dialogue and do it in a loving way, because I feel like people get scared because they're just like, what if I tell him that I don't like foot play? Well, you can tell him that, but it's how you tell him. Like, watch your tone. If you don't like foot play, then offer something as equally as amazing, right? Like, you can have, like, it doesn't, like, the sex doesn't have to end simply because you're not into the same thing. Like, you can explore other avenues and maybe discover something really new about yourself.
Yeah, there's always that thing of like you offer a compliment and then you offer like some kind of constructive criticism, and then like this is something that you use in, I don't know, like professional settings or something, but
It's
that you
called a
could also apply
compliment
that to sex where it's like,
sandwich.
oh, yeah, yeah, that's the thing. And you could apply that to sex, like in setting up a boundary, like, oh yeah, like I love like, ooh, I love how we're kissing right now, but maybe back off on the tongue a little bit and let's try grabbing my nipples. Like, I don't know. That's not quite a
Yeah.
compliment sandwich, but it's a similar idea where
No,
you
but
in
that's
that way
great
that's
because
more
that.
playful.
Mhm. Yeah, that's you know, you're offering the alternative lovingly. Like you're not checking out. Like you're not being like, oh, this
Mhm.
sucks. Like let me get the fuck out of here. What you're doing is you're telling someone that that's not working for you, but something else does, and you're sharing that information because you're being communicative.
Mhm.
Communicate your sexual wants and needs, people. It's so important.
Yes.
Thank you.
Um, the other thing that you all were both talking about was connection, and I think it's so important. Especially in this line of work, I feel like people are just connecting left and right, but people are not like connecting on an intimate level. And I don't know, like I've always struggled with that because I'm just like, oh, how intimate does this need to be? Um, but oftentimes I feel like I want that intimate connection. Like I don't want to just see your dick pic on Snapchat. Like I'm always much more surprised when someone's just like, hey, I love your content. It's so empowering. Plus, you're really sexy. Can I show you a nude? And I'm just like, yes, you can, which is always so great. But what has been your have you faced any challenges connecting with someone on like, because I know Damien, you said it starts in the mind, right? There has to be like this connection mentally.
Definitely. There has to be a definite uh, intellectual connection. Um, I think it comes down to a lot with the mind with me. I think it's a really sexy part of a man, um, and being able to connect and talk openly about several different things that are of common interest can lead that sort of open communication to being in bed with each other, you know, and that communication in bed and pleasing each other and all of those sort of things. Um, you know, it's a back and forth with me because, you know, when it comes to work, sometimes I don't have that connection beforehand
Mm.
with my scene partner. It's like I meet them and we're having sex within a half an hour after meeting each other. Uh,
Sure.
but it can be really hot and can be really intense. And some connections are stronger than others. But when it comes down to my personal life, it has to do a lot with the connection prior to the sexual energy uh, being built, definitely.
Yeah, I totally
Mhm.
agree. Piggy, what say you?
Yeah, I think also like an intellectual or some sort of connection that is something other than sex can be really important for me, especially in like a personal relationship or something like that. Um, and something that's very rewarding on like a sex work side of things is when you have somebody who's very, and like for me, making content on OnlyFans, it's always really exciting and rewarding. I would hope for that person as much as it is for me when they're commenting on my things or messaging me about like something extra that they would like to see, or like, oh, like, can I pay you to do this thing? And that type of a connection, like, of course there's like money involved in that sense, but like there's that type of a connection is more rewarding for me because it lets me know like something that I'm doing is helping them to get off, and that they're excited to see what I'm up to or whatever, rather than, I don't know, people who will just kind of message me on Twitter like with a dick pic, or message me being like, I want to see more of your feet. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to respond to that. Like, it's nice to know like that people want to see these things, but yeah, to create a connection on that level, and in person, too, you know, like, I don't know, going to a bar and having somebody just like grab your ass. I know there's a time and a place for that. I don't usually respond well to that sort of a introduction, if you want to call it that. Like, I would rather like have a little banter with somebody and see where that goes. And I feel most natural connecting with somebody like starting there and like getting a little flirty from there. Like, um
Mhm.
that, yeah, that to me is a connection that ends up being more rewarding. Not that, I mean, there's definitely been times where I've met a guy someplace like at a bar, and we end up going home and having hot sex and like never talking to each other again, which I think is great. Like sometimes that's wonderful, um and sometimes it is quick and intense and there's not much of a connection beyond that. And I value those type of small, like short-lived connections as well.
Mm.
But yeah, there's a lot of nuance to where like certain connections can really bloom and expand when you kind of talk about all kinds of different things before you get into like the hot and heavy. Um, yeah,
Of
a lot
course.
of beauty, a lot of beauty in those little moments.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. I completely understand that. Is it because um, we can jump into a scene and have really hot sex that when it comes to sex outside of work, we need that deeper connection before it doesn't feel like work anymore?
For me, there's just like a spectrum of connections I think that I'm okay with. And I don't always crave like a super intense mental or emotional connection with somebody if I want to have sex with them, and it doesn't always feel like work to me. But I'm also not, I'm not like a porn star, and I'm not somebody where that's like my main line of work where I'm having sex all the time to like in general.
Mhm.
But yeah, like some there, I don't know, some of the memories that I like hold fondest, like some of my fondest sexual memories are like one guy that I hooked up with one time, or one time I was in Philly, I was like on my way to go practice something, and this French guy was like, hey, I'm looking for the gay bars, with this like heavy French accent. And I was like, cool, you're in the right place. Like, this is where all the gay bars are at. And he's like, oh, do you want to make out? And I'm like, yeah. And I literally never saw that guy again, but I have such a vivid memory of that. And it was really hot and fun. And yeah, but then other times, like this most recent relationship I got out of, like it started with us like knowing each other peripherally through mutual friends for like years. And then like one night we were hanging out at like a party together, and he was like, I want to make out with you. And then it bloomed into this beautiful relationship. And unfortunately we're not together anymore, but it's still like it was a beautiful connection that we shared, and
Mhm.
I'm thankful for that.
Oh my God, okay, I'm thinking about a couple of things. Okay, first I want to say I think you hearing your conversations, you both have a really good way of compartmentalizing things, and I feel like that takes a certain level of emotional maturity to do that. Because you're able to like distinct, like you're able to be like, okay, this is sex work. Okay, this is like a real situation. Like, what do I want from this person? And you're able to face them in different scenarios, which is a really clever thing to do. And I think that's a learned skill. I think that's something that people, hence why I'm becoming a sex coach. I have to like teach people these things. Um, but also too, the reason I asked about connection was because being on social media, like I get so many messages, and oftentimes, yes, like the reason why they're interacting with me is because they'll see like my dick somewhere. But then inevitably, like I feel like it always changes completely. Like, oh, like, do you like sex? Well, what else do you like? "Oh, well, I like to write and I like to read and I like photography." And then ultimately just morphs into a conversation that has completely left has completely left the chat. Um, and it's a theme that I saw reoccurring, and the theme was connection. And I think as solosexuals, as people who are interested in sex, I think what it is that we want to be seen by one another because I feel like our sex hasn't been seen for so long, um, which I've found really profound because I've just gotten like so many inspiring messages of just like, oh, like you're really advocating for us. It's not just like this channel, just like my dick, which is sexy, but I feel as if I'm being seen because you're sharing your story and I'm able to connect with that, which I think is so important. So the work that we all do, although it might be really sexy, what we're doing is we're sharing connection and allowing people to either connect with other people or connect with themselves. Right? I don't know. I think so.
Yeah. And just real quickly, how radical is that to kind of like in at least turn our society's expectations of how relationships are built completely over on its head, where like
Totally.
a boy meets a girl and blah 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 and they're friends and then they get married and then they have sex, where now it's like you're on the internet, you see some dude's dick, you're like, hey, I love your dick, also what else do you like? That to me is really cool and like a very awesome queer radical thing that exists. And it's awesome to be doing that because I think it de-shames the body and sex in a lot of ways, where it's just like, yes, I have a dick. And also now you're getting to know me in all of these other beautiful ways and my other interests. And it becomes a really fun, strong connection. And it just flips the convention right on its head, which is so fucking cool.
Yeah, and I think also too, I have experienced that, and I think the only reason why is because I gathered the courage to like go out there and seek these things. And that's one of the messages that I really want to bring home is like people listen to this podcast that don't feel like they're worthy or sexy enough to like go out and meet a friend, or you don't necessarily have to show your dick online if you don't want to, but get on social. Like I hadn't, I don't know why I waited for so long because all the baiters are using social media. But it's like go just start a Twitter or start an Instagram and like say hi. Like people are approachable. Like I think ultimately, again, the theme that I've really encountered was just like people just want to be connected, and this is how we're doing it. This is like the day and age. Like everyone's just online, and especially now during a pandemic, like it's so easily accessible to do those things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. Wow, we've been talking for like an hour already. It's so nice.
Super nice.
Yeah, it's so great getting to know with y'all. Well, that was a really great chat. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Me
of
too.
course.
Yeah. Thanks,
It was a
guys.
lovely conversation. And I want to again say thank you for being on this episode of the Bate Escape. When I first launched this thing, I had no idea who was going to listen. And it was so funny. I got a message from Twitter telling me that it was my 1 year Twitterversary a couple of days ago. It might have been yesterday, the day before that. And I was like, wow, it's been a year. So much can change in 1 year.
Totally.
Mhm.
It's crazy. Like I just never thought I'd reach like an audience to be like, oh, here's my story. I'm just some dude in LA that likes to jerk off a lot. Like, what can I possibly bring to the table? And I don't know, it's been pretty empowering, I feel. Because I get to meet people like you and like have a conversation and like make friend and share really valuable information, which is ultimately, when I really think about it, that's like my core desire. And I used to be like all these different, whatever it was, like if it was photography or if it was writing or if it was like all these different things, I think ultimately what I always wanted to do was just make an impact, make a change, and whatever avenue that would evolve or be, I'd be happy doing that. And
You're
I
doing
found,
it, Bill.
yeah,
You're doing it.
It's not a conventional way, but you're doing it, and I love it.
Yeah.
no, it's not. But I have people like you to support me, and all really all to be like from the bottom of my heart, like inspiring. Like I'm inspired by both of you. I literally, you all give me empowerment and agency to be like, hey, you know what? They can do it. I can do it too. And I hope that people will hear this podcast and feel the same way.
Yeah,
Yes. Let's hear it for the listeners. We love you.
exactly.
Shout out to the listeners.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Again, social media, again, a shout out if people don't listen to the beginning.
My website is DamianXXDragon.com, and my Instagram is also DamianXXDragon. And then my OnlyFans and just for fans are Damien XXX Dragon, I mean. And then Bait World is there too. And I believe it is Damien Dragon or DamianXXX Dragon. I'm on there every day, so I don't know why I don't know my handle.
I'm gonna go find you.
And then for me, on Twitter, I'm at Prettypiggy19. On Instagram, I'm at Prettypiggy_19. And on Bait World, I'm pretty sure it's Prettypiggy19 or Prettypiggy_19 or Prettypiggy94. But
That's
Pretty
it.
Piggy is in there.
Yeah, Pretty Piggy, I love it. And you all know how to find me, Beastlybator. I'm all over the internet. Just Google it. You'll find something. This is an amazing conversation. Again, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for having us. So nice
You're
to
both
talk with you both.
you're both beautiful humans, and I will be definitely following all your stuff and hopefully get to do this again.
Amazing. I'd love it.
Yeah. I
All
love you
right.
both. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Mm.
I guess.
All right, bros.
Bye.
We'll catch you on the next episode. Later.
See ya.